when we experience an urge, that quickened or heightened breathing starts to send a message to our amygdala being the um, area in our limbic system that is responsible for things like aggression, learned behaviors to addiction, and fear specifically. And so what happens is that even if it's a small increase in breathing, our amygdala, it's almost like the amygdala starts to just pump a little bit more. It starts to get activated more. And once that activation in the amygdala occurs, your body starts to stress and starts to have a little bit of panic. And so what they've found is that when you're actually able to slow your breathing down, even if it's just slowing it to 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, that amygdala activation starts to slow.
Welcome to the Self-Care Goddess podcast, where healing stories, practical self-care strategies, and science-backed tools to regulate stress, feel calm, grounded, and energized come together to help you reclaim your vitality. I'm your host, Rita Savoia, holistic nutritionist, trauma-informed breathwork coach, and founder of Breathwork Barista. This podcast is for women who are ready to restore their energy and radiance, reconnect with their bodies, reawaken their inner power, and redefine self-care as a way of being. Through science meets soul practices, restorative mind-body tools, and real stories of transformation, we'll explore how true well-being can help you live with more joy, vibrant health, and authentic connection to yourself and those you love. Take a deep breath in, let it go, and let's begin. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Self-Care Goddess podcast with today's theme, breathwork for stress and addiction management, something very dear to my heart, as you know. So before we start and I introduce our awesome guest, let's get into coherence with our mind, our body, and our breath. So I invite you, if you can, lower your gaze or even close your eyes for just a couple moments here. Tune out the outer world and just tune in within yourself. Following those expansive inhales coming in through the nose, and then letting it go with a gentle sigh through the mouth. Feeling the expansion of the inhales, and then exhaling, feeling the release, the letting go. See if any part of your body is calling for some extra loving, some extra attention. Maybe it's feeling tight. Maybe there's a little stress point there. If you can locate that particular part, I invite you to channel the exhales to that area, allowing the exhales to maybe loosen up that tight spot, release any tension, any stiffness that area is currently experiencing. So using the breath to help you loosen up. And now I invite you to channel the breaths into the area of the heart. So allowing the inhales and exhales to flow in and out of your heart. Where attention goes, energy flows. So let's energize this incredible organ that's keeping you alive without asking for nothing in return. And in this space of immense gratitude for your heart, I now invite you to visualize someone that you're grateful for today, living or past. Visualize this person as if they were right here in front of you. And I invite you to radiate all the love, the gratitude, and the appreciation from your heart to their heart. And now send that love, gratitude, and appreciation. Send it back to you. Expand your heart. Feel the gratitude for all that you do, not giving up. Continue to be working on yourself, helping others do the same. This is what you're called to do. Just prioritizing you on your next inhale. Flutter your eyes open and come back to us. Thank you for participating in that quick coherence technique. So today's guest is someone who has lived the work he now shares, guiding others through profound transformation from the inside out. Kevin is an author, speaker, and researcher who has spent the last 17 years leading transformational experiences around the world. His journey began in the field of human trafficking prevention, where he designed training programs for government agencies and private sector organizations, including airports and seaports. But despite the impact of that work, Kevin found himself facing his own internal struggles with depression, anxiety, and addiction. And what ultimately shifted everything for him wasn't mindset work or traditional talk therapy, it was the breath. Since then, he has guided more than 6,000 people through breathwork experiences and trained over 100 instructors globally. Through his books, research, and collaborations with addictions and first responder communities, Kevin is helping to reshape how we understand the connection between breath, the brain, the heart, and long term healing. And beyond his work, Kevin has a deep sense of adventure, having led over 50 photography and adventure trips across more than 12 countries throughout Asia, Africa, and South America. If his life had a soundtrack right now, it would be August 12th by Grunben. I hope I pronounced that right. And one of his simple pleasures is the series Homeland. Kevin, welcome to the Self Care Goddess podcast. How are you today?
I'm amazing, Rita. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for leading that wonderful coherence breathing. As someone who teaches a lot about breath, I'm not as often led through breathing. So it's so nice to start a conversation with that. So thank you so much for doing that.
No, you're very welcome. And thank you for participating in that. It literally took two minutes, not even 2.5 minutes. So it's such a beautiful way to get into coherence, not only with yourself, but with others. And I love, love, love this one because, people are like, it takes so long to get into a meditative state. Now with breath work, you can change your state instantaneously, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about. But give us a little bit more background because I read your book and thank you for sharing your book with me. You have an incredible story, and one event led to another and then and another, and I truly don't believe in coincidences. There are lots of synchronicities and serendipitous moments. So can you share with us a little more about your background and what has led the mission that you're on today?
Be happy to. So I was working in Seattle back before COVID started, and I was working for a nonprofit organization specifically targeted at teaching the private and public sector how to spot and identify various forms of human trafficking, whether that be sex trafficking or labor trafficking, and how to appropriately respond. And so, after about 4 years of doing this work, the nature of that work really started to get to me. I didn't have the same tools back then as I do now for managing the secondary trauma that I was experiencing just by communicating with a lot of survivors, hearing stories, and working with local law enforcement, and just hearing some of the things that they were seeing and witnessing out in the field. And so I dropped into a depression, and pretty quickly I didn't want to feel that depression. So my depression led to addiction, and I became addicted to. I was porn, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever I could to block out what I was feeling and to kind of just push it down as much as possible. And after maybe 6 months, I found myself here in Mexico, on the verge of suicide, just standing outside of a pharmacy, ready to buy, a concoction of pills that would end it all. And I kind of came to like, all right, I think I want to live, but I don't want to go on medication. I'm not that interested in talking to a therapist. What else can I do? So I started looking around, and that's when I found breath work. And I had studied meditation for years. I'd worked with monks in Southeast Asia, but I'd never really gotten deep into the breath. So I kind of just dove in right away, and really quickly it it something shifted inside of me, and the depression was gone. And it was gone so fast that I was just so kind of confused in a lot of ways. But
Mhm.
that was pretty much the start of everything, and that's when my life pretty much, drastically changed, and a new kind of world began for me.
So fascinating, super fascinating. Are you still working with human trafficking or not? Not as much.
No, pretty much, as soon as this started, I quit my job, and I started dedicating all my time to understanding. I wanted to kind of reverse engineer what had happened to me because, I'd known so many people in my life who had experienced depression or addiction or both,
Mhm.
and had been on antidepressants or, going to therapists, whatnot. And either they lost their lives due to it, or they were just the depression or addictions never went away. So I really wanted to understand, like, how was I able to go from the lowest point in my life to one of the feeling greater than I ever had in my life in such a short period of time, just by practicing breath work and connecting to my breath. So that was when I quit everything, and I started really just focusing, practicing, studying with experts, traveling around the world to meet other people who had been doing this. And so that's all I've been doing for the last 5 years.
Amazing. So let's geek out a little bit, Kevin, because I know you do in your book, and that's what I loved about it. It was a beautiful story, your personal story, but then you also back it up with science and practical tools. I mean, it is gold. Like it can definitely help guide someone. So let's geek out a little bit on the science and what was sort of the most surprising haha in terms of how breathing or let's talk about dysfunctional breathing affects every single cell, tissue, muscle, organ in our body. What was the most sort of surprising thing that you found?
I think that there are so many breathing dysfunctions, and most people in the world have at least two, at the very least two. And most people have no idea that any of them exist. Now, luckily, breath and the importance of breath is becoming more popular in the mainstream now. So a lot more people are paying attention to it. But I was really surprised to find how deep this all goes. And so whenever I talk about breath, I always discuss the mental health iceberg. So at the tip of the iceberg, you have anxiety, stress, insomnia, fatigue, addiction. And often you treat the symptoms at the top, right? But underneath the iceberg, underneath the water, you have chronic mouth breathing. You have chest breathing. You have dyspnea, which is a shortness of breath. You have apnea, breath holding. You have all these different dysfunctions. And I studied with James Nestor, author of Breath, the New Science of a Lost Art, back when he first launched his book. So I was really impacted by his work, and I dove deeper into the mouth breathing kind of conundrum. And I think one of the most interesting areas that I found, so mouth breathing is something that so many people are doing nowadays. And I'll just kind of like dip into one of the things that happens from this is when we mouth breathe habitually, and we're not breathing through our nose and through our nasal cavity. And remember, our nasal cavity goes halfway back into our face. It's massive. It's filtering, humidifying, cleaning, warming the air. It's doing all these functions. When we don't breathe through our nose, that air goes directly to the back of our throat, and it starts hitting against our adenoids and our tonsils. And eventually, all that dirty air starts to build inflammation. And so our adenoids and tonsils start to get inflamed, and they start to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, they start pushing forward on our face. This has a couple effects. The first is that it makes nasal breathing more difficult. So many people nowadays think they have a deviated septum, whereas the reality is they might, but they just might have inflammation in the back of their throat due to mouth breathing. The other thing that happens is they start to get, dark circles under their eyes. Their nose starts to become bigger. Their jaw becomes less defined. All these things start to happen with their face. And you see this a lot with kids. Nowadays, there's myofunctional therapists who actually work on working with
Mm,
kids, just changing their breathing. They're not doing any reconstructive surgery or pulling out their wisdom teeth. They're just
mm,
changing the way that they breathe. And the before and after pictures from this are amazing. But I've been seeing this a lot with adults, people who join my instructor training, they switch to nasal breathing and suddenly the shape of their face completely changes. So mouth breathing is a huge one. Obviously, chest breathing is a really big one, as I'm sure you know. Chest breathing a lot of times has been shown to happen as early as the age of 5, and kids start to mimic adults. They start to hear that bellies are unattractive, so they pull them in. Or we just experience trauma. And it's been shown through a lot of research that trauma, for some reason, just shifts our breathing up into our chest. And so suddenly we're using all these auxiliary breathing muscles in our shoulders, in our chest, in our neck as well. So people start to get chronic migraines. They start to get neck pain. They're going to the chiropractor. They don't understand why it's happening. And it all just leads back to the way that they're breathing. So I try to work with people to identify which type of breathing dysfunctions they have. Because when we're able to do that, you start to notice that suddenly your sleep becomes better, your mood becomes better, you're less reactive, you start feeling a little bit happier because you're sleeping better and because you're less reactive. So there's so many out there, and obviously we can dive into more if you'd like, but those are some of the main ones that I see nowadays.
yes. And so a simple technique would be mouth taping if you're a mouth breather, and what other things can people do if they notice that they're mouth breathing?
If you're doing it during the day, simply setting alarms on your phone, breathe through your nose. If you're working at your computer, just a little sticky note on the corner, breathe through your nose. If you're snoring at night, so I normally ask people to download something called the Snore Lab app, which is free for 1 week. You put it next to your bed and it records you if you snore at night, because a lot of people don't know that they snore.
Right.
But eight
Or they're in
hours,
denial.
right, exactly. Um, 8 hours of mouth breathing is 8 hours of putting your body on a low grade alert, because mouth breathing is what activates your sympathetic response, your fight or flight response. But it's also drying out your throat. Again, it's also breathing in all that unclean, dirty, unfiltered air. So you don't want to be doing that. So yes, mouth tape is great. You don't need specific mouth tape, a little tiny piece of athletic tape over your mouth. But there's so many Native American tribes would actually tilt their beds forward a little bit. So they would put posts, or like, you can put books on your bed so your head doesn't fall backwards at night. So it keeps your mouth shut. Um, or
Interesting. So
it
they
could
knew
be
that, the ancient, wisdom, right? They knew that mouth breathing is no good.
so much. I mean, it's interesting because the Mandan and Sioux tribes were really famous for pinching the mouth shut of their babies. And I have a good friend named Mary Ruddick, who's a world famous anthropologist who's gone to very remote tribes all around the world studying their diets and their behaviors. And when I told her about that mouth pinching, she said, Kevin, I've seen that in every single tribe that I've visited around the world, and I never understood what it was until now. So this is something that has been a part of humanity until we started to drift into a modern society, and it just got lost somewhere, like so many other things. Um, so Native Americans knew it. So many tribes knew it. So many cultures around the world have been practicing this for centuries and centuries, but it's one of those things that has just been lost over time.
Right. But I hope, podcasts like these, your book, obviously your instructor training too, and the stuff that I do, people are just getting back into it, right? So that they understand the significance and the benefits of just taking the breath seriously. That it does have these really powerful benefits to optimizing the breath for every single system in the body. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see where this is all taking us. Now, there were a few surprises when I was reading your book. And can you just maybe explain the essential role that breathing has in stimulating the lymphatic system?
Sure.
Hmm.
So the circulatory system has a pump, right, being the heart. But the lymphatic system does not have a pump. So it relies on external factors like body movement, like muscle contraction and pressure changes. So when we breathe in and our diaphragm moves downwards, it creates this negative pressure up in our thoracic cavity. And that negative pressure is what allows lymphatic fluid to move upwards. When we breathe out and the diaphragm moves back up, that pressure reverses. And so the fluid is able to move downward again. When we breathe shallow and we're not creating that same type of pressure, the lymphatic fluid isn't able to move like it was before. Because so often, like I talked about chest breathing, when people are breathing from their chest and they're not breathing from their diaphragm or from their belly, that diaphragm isn't moving like it was before. It's not creating that positive and negative pressure, and it's not allowing that lymphatic fluid to flow upwards and downwards. And the effect of that is more inflammation, it's less metabolic waste removal, and it's just lower immunity. So they found that when lymphatic flow is able to happen freely and naturally, your immunity is actually much higher. Your body has a much stronger chance of fighting off infections. So it actually plays a pretty vital role. But again, nowadays, so many people are like, I breathe all the time. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But imagine for a moment, if we exercised or ate as much during the day as we breathed, right? So we put nowadays we put so much into what we eat. And most of us nowadays eat 2 or 3 times a day, but we breathe 20 to 25,000 times a day. So if we're doing this in a way that's detrimental to our body, of course, it's going to be impacting us in a really negative way. But if we're doing it in a way that is helpful to our body, imagine the difference that we can create if we have 25,000 chances to do this every single day. So the way that we breathe matters so much, and the lymphatic system is just one of those systems that is affected um, pretty substantially.
Yes, and so I have these in-person breathing events, and I've actually had a few people come with either a cold or they weren't feeling good or they're just feeling off or maybe a headache. And then when they left the breathwork experience, they're like, I feel fine. I feel so much better. My headache went away, right? So, and even I actually I was very shocked. Somebody came with a runny nose, stuffed nose, and he was just hesitant about breathing. And I'm like, just try your best, whatever. Don't overdo it. Just try your best. And he left, and his cold was gone. His stuffy nose was gone. Yeah, I know. So
It's
powerful.
common, and that's the kind of stuff I've had people who had vertebrae that had
Mhm.
been popped out of place that just popped back into place during breathing.
Wow.
I've had people with migraines, like chronic migraines, come that suddenly uh, their migraines they were having them way less frequently. Even I can't remember the word now, but individuals who bruise a lot. I know there's a word for this, but I can't remember. Once they started getting into breath work, they said their bruising, when they used to have a bruise for 4 to 5 days, now it would go away much, much faster, like 1 to 2 days, and it's gone. So yeah, the effects on your physical health there's just so many of them.
Such a powerful modality with so many beautiful benefits. So let's talk a little bit about cravings and urges. And you do such a lovely job explaining, breaking down exactly what happens in the body and the brain during craving. Do you want to just give us a little recap?
Absolutely. So I'll just focus specifically on the breath for this. So they actually did Rutgers did a study, and they were trying to understand what happened with your breath when you were experiencing a craving. So they brought individuals in who are experiencing addictions to alcohol, and they showed them images of alcohol. And they noticed three major shifts in every single one of the participants. The first one was that their breathing shifted upwards into their chest. Second thing that happened was that their breathing became faster. A lot of times it wasn't that fast. It was, if they were breathing 12 breaths a minute, it would shift up to 14 breaths a minute. But as you know, sometimes these small shifts can have very big effects. The third thing that happened was that their breathing became irregular. And as person like yourself who teaches coherence, you understand how beneficial it can be when you're breathing symmetrically or coherently 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. So when that breathing starts to become irregular, now it's 2 seconds in, 1 second out, 1 second in, 2 seconds out. All of that kind of change in your breathing is controlling what's happening with your heart. So all of a sudden, your heart is trying to follow and mimic your breath, and you're putting all this um, more effort and energy into your heart, and it kind of has this big effect on your body. Now, to zoom in a little bit, when we experience an urge, that quickened or heightened breathing starts to send a message to our amygdala being the um, area in our limbic system that is responsible for things like aggression, learned behaviors to addiction, and fear specifically. And so what happens is that even if it's a small increase in breathing, it's almost like the amygdala starts to just pump a little bit more. It starts to get activated more.
Mm.
And once that activation in the amygdala occurs, your body starts to stress and starts to have a little bit of panic. And so what they've found is that when you're actually able to slow your breathing down, even if it's just slowing it to 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, that amygdala activation starts to slow, and the amygdala starts to not get as activated or deactivated, if you will. And in the studies that they've done on this, they've found that when people are able to slow their breathing like that, the areas of their brain specifically related to salience and self control go way up. Their impulse control goes way up, and their emotional management goes way up. So, all the changes that you need to happen in your brain to effectively manage an urge or a craving are activated when you activate your breathing in the right way. And they've done numerous studies on this, and I tried to reference as many of them as I could in the book to show people like this is not a one-off thing. This has been replicated by a number of people over the last 15 years. Many of them actually used coherence and resonant breathing as the breathing practice. And the other thing that was great was that most of them only used 5 minutes. They only had their participants do this breathing for about 5 minutes, and they were still able to measure these massive changes, which was the same exact. I did a study last year where I had 65 participants come in. I led them through 5 minutes of different slow breathing exercises. I was measuring their brain waves and their heart coherence and HRV, and I found the exact same results. They were able to reach a state of coherence in about 28 seconds. They generally shifted from high stress waves to alpha waves or theta waves very, very quickly, which are just more relaxed brain waves. So not only have I seen this in the research, but I've been seeing this in my own research that I've been conducting as well. So it's a pretty big shift in just how you change your breathing and focus on your breath can have in terms of trying to overcome or battle something like an addiction.
Right, right. And sorry, can you just clarify addiction, urges, and cravings?
Sure. I mean, I
What
use urges and cravings for someone who's experiencing a bad habit or someone who feels like they're experiencing an addiction. I don't really like to use the word addict because I think that's a really negative label. And I think sometimes we experience addiction. For some people, how they label that word is different. Um, the way that I've kind of become aware of addiction is like when you feel like you have very little control over your urges and your cravings. And you feel like whether it's drinking or porn or smoking or Netflix or scrolling, you feel like you can't stop doing it. So some people have habits where, I love ice cream and it's a bad habit and I do it sometimes. Other people are like, I can't stop eating ice cream. So, I'm not an addiction expert. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not trained in addiction medicine, but I've just experienced a lot of addictions over my life. And that's the way that I've come to understand it is like we all experience urges and cravings. For some of us, it's something that we're trying to do less of. For others, we're trying to get rid of it completely because it just doesn't hold a place in our life anymore. It's not something that serves our purpose or something that we want to be a part of. So that's generally how I break them up.
Okay, okay. And so if someone listening is like, "Oh, I definitely have those cravings." Now, for me, I had Nutella and bread cravings, like nonstop
Common.
for so
Absolutely.
many years. I know, right? For so many years, but for me, it was more of a blood sugar issue, or I wasn't eating complete meals, and so, of course, I needed that sweet fix, and now it's gone. I don't think I've had Nutella in years, right? But if so for somebody that's getting this and they're like, okay, I want to try this because remember, I think the urge, now correct me if I'm wrong, only lasts about 90 seconds. Is that correct? Or the
I mean,
craving?
I say 1 to 5 minutes, 5 minutes being a very loose like, generally, people say 90 seconds, is how long an urge can last and how long it can die after that. So, yeah, it
Mhm.
can be very fast, but
Right.
sometimes it can last up to 5 minutes. It really just depends.
Right, right. Okay. So then so that's good news, right? So you within that 90 seconds or 1 to 5 minutes, you have an opportunity to use a breathing technique. You want to share maybe a favorite breathing technique or a simple practice that somebody can try today after this podcast?
Absolutely. I think that and from my own experience working with individuals and studying the research that's out there right now, what you led us through in the beginning of the podcast is actually one of the best breathing techniques that has been shown to help you overcome an urge or a craving. So, when you do experience an urge or a craving, so you're at work, you're feeling stressed, and you're like, I need a cigarette, but you don't want to smoke cigarettes anymore. It's something that you don't want in your life. You don't want to be a part of it. Best thing to do is just sit like we're sitting now, close your eyes, and just start to slow your breath. For some people, when they first get into breath work, they can't breathe in and out for 5 seconds. They breathe in for 3 seconds and they feel like they can't breathe in anymore. If you're doing that, that's okay. Just think of breathing in slower. A lot of people, they take a breath and they're like, I can't breathe in anymore. And it's like, yes, because you're breathing in too fast. You need to breathe in
Mhm.
really, really slow. Just think of um, trying to, especially as you exhale, you're exhaling into a candle and you're trying not to blow the candle out. So you're trying to exhale a little bit of air at a time. That's exactly the same thing you want to be doing. If you can do that for just a couple minutes, there's a good chance that that biological and physiological reaction that will occur in your body will bring you back to, okay, I don't actually need a cigarette right now. I'm feeling stressed. And generally, when you start to get stressed, your brain doesn't like that feeling. And so it looks for relief. And your brain remembers, oh, remember that last time you smoked a cigarette and you got relief? Also, if it's cigarettes that you're having an issue with, remember that smoking is all about breathing. That's all you're doing is taking deep breaths. So I was addicted to cigarettes before I got into breath work. As soon as I got into breath work, like literally day 3, I never thought about a cigarette again because
Wow.
I realized all I was doing was
I know.
stopping and taking slow, deep breaths. The nicotine is not addictive. They say it's addictive, and that's part of the propaganda that cigarette companies have been putting out there for years, is that this is so addictive. When you try to quit, you won't be able to quit. But it's not true. The nicotine is out of your system within just a couple days. So it's all about stopping and taking slow, deep breaths. And that's what makes you feel so good after having a cigarette. It has nothing to do with the taste of the cigarette. Um, so if that is your thing, just remember that the majority of what's drawing you to that are the deep breaths. And so once you switch that with cigarettes, or sorry, with once you switch the cigarettes with breathing, your
Yeah.
body craves that so much more.
Wow, that is so fascinating. So, why is it like, why aren't more people knowing about this? Why are they trying all kinds of different things? In your opinion, is it because it's that simple and that easy?
I think so. I think so. Yes. I think sometimes, it's just easier for people to take a pill. It's
Mm,
easier for people to put on a patch.
yeah,
Um, it does take, like, you do have to stop what you're doing. And for a lot of people nowadays, it's difficult. They don't want to stop what they're doing. They want to keep doing whatever it is they're working on or working towards or moving towards. But the hilarious thing about that is the more you stop and the more you slow down and the more you focus on your breath, the more in love you fall with doing that. And the more your body starts to crave it, because your body doesn't crave the fast paced movements all the time. Like, yeah, exercise is great, movement is great, but your body also just really desires that peace and that quiet. And so by giving your body that more often, it's going to thank you and just ask for more of it. So yeah, it's a tough one because I'm trying to convince people to do something that doesn't have a price tag on it. And most people feel like, well, if it's free, it's probably free for a reason,
right. And
because it just
doesn't work as
it
well.
doesn't work that as well. Exactly. But luckily now we're starting to see more and more people getting into this, more and more communities bringing this into their own activities, and their routines, and more people overcoming things like addiction, depression, anxiety, insomnia. So it's getting there, and I think as time goes on, it will be getting and becoming, one of the most popular things to do for your mental health.
Yes, I love that. So, again, just to reiterate, if tonight you're having that ice cream craving and you walking towards your freezer, before you open that freezer door, take these couple of moments of deep, coherent breathing. Should they breathe through the nose primarily?
Absolutely. Breathing through the nose, nice and slow. If you can get up to 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, amazing.
Huh?
I
Mm-hmm.
tell people to just try and keep increasing how deep they can go. The deeper you can go, the slower you can go, the more that's going to calm your body down. Generally, when you feel an urge or a craving, a lot of that comes from an emotion that you
Hmm.
don't want to feel and a
Right.
physical sensation that has accompanied that emotion. And often it's the physical sensation that drives people to try and avoid it. So that could be like butterflies in your stomach, could be tightness in your chest, could be a pulsating in your forehead, and you don't want to feel that physical sensation anymore. So you start, your brain starts to scan things that you can do to help you push that feeling down, that physical sensation down and out. But when you can just breathe, slow your
Mhm.
breathing down, just start to notice, what is the emotion? What is the physical sensation? Don't push it away. Don't avoid it. Just allow it to flow, allow it to happen. And
I
I
think you
think that
named it as well, right? In your book, you
I
named
did. Yeah. I
your
named it.
your
It's called
craving?
the Dolly method. So it's dial in, allow, learn, and improve.
Mhm.
And so you're stopping, right? Stopping is often can be the hardest part for anyone. You have to stop what you're doing. You have to close your eyes and dial in. So just close your eyes and start to breathe. Slow, deep breaths through your nose. Then you're noticing, okay, what's the emotion that I'm feeling right now? Is it sadness? Is it anxiety? Is it stress? Is it loneliness? Is it fear? Whatever it is, just allow it. And I think nowadays, so many people, when they're feeling those emotions like sadness, grief, loneliness, stress, they feel like I shouldn't be feeling this. But all those emotions are just part of the human experience. And the better we get at sitting with those emotions and not pushing them down, the more successful we get. And when I say successful, I mean successful at doing whatever it is you're doing, not getting followers or making money. Maybe money is a side product of that, but getting successful at really connecting at what you're doing. So just allowing those emotions to flow. Then just notice, okay, is there a physical sensation that's occurring in my body? What is it? Is it ringing in my ears? Is it a pounding in my head? Is it a tightness in my ribs? There's so many different physical sensations that accompany emotions like this. So just noticing what the physical sensation is, and again, just allowing it, just breathing into it, noticing where it is. Because when you get better at that, when you keep doing this, you're going to start to notice, oh, I'm feeling this kind of tightness in my left rib. Instead of going to Netflix, instead of scrolling on my phone, instead of going outside to have a cigarette, I know I can just breathe into this and it will eventually pass. Because the more we push it down and push it down and push it down, it starts to manifest in other ways in our body. It starts to become full blown anxiety, panic attacks, stress, who knows, disease, right? The more we push down emotions and don't actually acknowledge the emotions, it can really manifest as diseases in our body.
Right.
So we're just allowing those things to occur. And so often, as I said, it's 1 to 5 minutes that these urges and cravings can pass through us. So the more we start to practice that, the better we start to come at it, become at it, and the better we start to learn that we can actually overcome these things much better.
So powerful. Like you're empowering yourself to be able to get through this for sure. And so I know in your book, you talk about addiction and how it's not a motivational problem. And many people think that it is. But it's something really interesting. You bring in the endocrine system and some of the hormones. Can you talk a little bit about that and enlighten us on that aspect?
Sure. The endocrine system, I mean, it really plays a pretty vital role
Mm.
in addiction because mainly because of, the cortisol. And we talked about how when individuals are triggered and they have an urge or a craving, um, their breathing starts to quicken. The moment your breathing starts to quicken, we talked about how the amygdala starts to pump, but also your cortisol starts to go up. And when that cortisol starts to be released, that's what's putting your body on high alert. And when your body gets put on that high alert, that's when it becomes so much more difficult to overcome your urge and your craving. And you immediately go, "Ah, I'm just going to give into it." Most of
Yeah,
us
it's
give
easier.
in to our urges within 3 seconds. We start to experience an emotion like stress. We start to feel a physical sensation like tightness, and we go straight to whatever it is so that we don't have to feel those things anymore. But when we start to breathe, we start to slow our breathing down. That cortisol starts to go down, and the hormone that starts to go up is called DHEA. DHEA being the anti cortisol. So DHEA kind of works in the opposite way, where cortisol increases stress, DHEA decreases it. So simply by slowing down our breathing, we're changing those hormones. Now, the other important hormone that we can use via our breathing is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide being the chemical that builds in our nasal cavity. And so when we're mouth breathing, we're not breathing in nasal nitric oxide. It just remains here in our nasal cavity. When we breathe in through our nose, so if you were to take a breath out and just hold it for a moment, when you breathe in again through the nose, we're breathing in that nasal nitric oxide. And so what happens is our blood vessels are opening up. Nasal nitric oxide is a vasodilator. So it opens your blood vessels, creates better blood flow to all parts of our body, including our brain. When our brain has better blood flow, it's better oxygenated. When our brain has more oxygenation, we're able to manage our emotions much better. And there's been actually a lot of research around this in terms of oxygenation and emotional management. So, simply by closing your mouth, by breathing through your nose, by slowing your breath down, you're changing three different hormones in your body that if it directly affect how your body manages your addiction or your bad habit. Um, so it actually plays a pretty critical role in a number of ways, and yeah, something that I've been getting more and more fascinated in is the endocrine system, and I'm sure there's going to be a follow up book that I will do that will kind of dive a bit deeper into that.
Yes, that definitely, and it's interesting because in my nutrition school, we studied these hormones, and there is no reference to breathing affecting DHEA levels. So, yeah, definitely need some more information. So that was fascinating for me to learn that. So, in terms of what is there a common advice you tend to give your clients or your instructors that join your training? Is there something common that you tend to say to everyone?
Yes, consistency. I know everyone says this, but it is such an important part of it because when you're doing this regularly, and what I have found is that when I can get people to do 10 days consistently, that's when they really start to notice the difference. And one of the biggest differences I've seen is the shift in circadian rhythms. So, what got me fascinated in this was when I first got into breath work, my normal waking up time was about 8 a.m. And as soon as I got into breathing, I started waking up at 7:30. And then suddenly it was 7, and then it was 6:30, and then it was 6, and then it was 5:30. And I was like, "All right, it's still dark outside. Like this is a little intense." I didn't shift anything else in my life. I was
Hmm.
just breathing every single day. But when you breathe, especially when you start your day with coherent breathing, you're you're fully oxygenating your body. You're creating this coherence with your heart. When your cells are oxygenated, they don't need as much rest, right? So when you're breathing incoherently all day, erratically, your heart's working harder and harder. Your cells are not getting the oxygen they need. It's almost like they're being strangled a little bit. So at night, they need more time to rest and recover. But when you start every single day with coherent breathing, when you're conscious all day long about the way that you're breathing through your nose, you're breathing with your diaphragm, you're trying to breathe slower as much as you can, your cells don't need as much rest and regeneration. So you start sleeping less. And so suddenly you have more time to do whatever it is you want to do throughout the course of your day. And all this just comes from consistency, just doing it every single day. Obviously, we're human beings. Every once in a while, something comes up. We can't do it. It happens to me. But I've noticed that, sometimes there'll be like 3 or 4 days when something comes up. Maybe I'm traveling, I'm doing something. I notice it almost immediately. I notice that I'm a little bit more reactive.
Right.
I sleep a little bit later. It's just like little things that start. So I'm just like, oh my God, I can't miss tomorrow. And then I get back into it again, and my sleep time starts to get lower again. I start to be less reactive. So yeah, I think it's really the consistency that I try to push as much as possible.
Yes, for sure. Consistency builds a carves mountains. So it can really be such very, very powerful. I'm wondering, are you wearing like wearables like aura rings or something in terms of the quality of your sleep? It's still like very good quality as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love using technology at night.
Yeah.
Just because of the Bluetooth. I don't
Yeah.
love having that in my room.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, that people do that, but I don't. If something happened and I didn't feel like my sleep was regenerative enough or good
Yeah.
enough, like, I would probably start tracking it, but
Mhm.
at the moment, it's great. I don't really have a reason to use it.
Yeah.
Um, but I have used the SnoreLab app to make sure that I'm not breathing through my mouth, which I think is super important. And that's not happening at night. So for me at the moment, yeah, I'm not using those.
Okay. No, no worries. I just wanted to know if even because you've shortened the number of hours you're sleeping, maybe you're not getting as much REM sleep. But yeah, maybe you still are. I mean, I would love to gain some hours in the 24 that we get, right? Why not? So I'm gonna try. So tell me a little bit more about your practice, your personal practice. What do you do in the morning?
It's always a little bit different. I don't always like to do the same thing, but it generally includes at least 5 to 10 minutes of coherence breathing. How I wake up depends on what type of breathing I do. If I wake up feeling a little more tired, I'll do a little bit of a faster breathing practice. Sometimes I'll maybe throw some breath holds in there. I love doing intermittent hypoxic breathing. Um, I don't love doing like super fast, aggressive, like really intense stuff first thing in the morning generally, but that's just me. But I would say I do 15 minutes of breathing followed by 15 to 20 minutes of just simple meditation.
Hmm.
And then, throughout the course of the day, it really just depends on how my day goes. If I hit like an afternoon lull and I start to feel like my energy's down, I'll do a breathing practice to bring that back up. And what I can share with your listeners is that one of the best breathing practices for low energy
Hmm.
is I call it like a reverse ladder. So ladder breathing is 1 to 2 breaths. So 2 seconds in, 4 seconds out, 3 seconds in, 6 seconds out. So just doubling the amount of um, your exhale time. A reverse ladder being the opposite. So if I'm breathing in for 6 seconds, I'm breathing out for 3 seconds. So my inhale is longer. When you're inhaling longer, just think you're kind of activating your sympathetic on the inhale. The inhale is sympathetic, the exhale is parasympathetic or rest and digest. So when you focus more on the inhales, you're kind of activating your body a bit more.
Hmm.
And then I'll let everything out and then I'll hold my breath. And when you hold your breath like that, the carbon dioxide acts the same way as the nitric oxide, which is it's a vasodilator. So it's opening up your blood vessels and creating that blood flow up into your brain. So it's going to help kind of wake you up a little bit and help you get over some of that fatigue that you might be feeling.
Yes. So I'm working on my bolt score, or control pause, holding your breath at the bottom of the exhale, and I still can't get it up. It's weird. I can't get the number up, and I'm thinking maybe there's something anatomically about my lungs that I don't have that much capacity, because of course I have a breath work practice in the morning and in the evening. But my bolt score, it's still the same. I mean, it's still in the high 20s, but I'm like, "Hey, I'm working out, I'm doing a lot of things, but I just cannot get it. I can't increase it." Any thoughts on that?
Yes. I have a practice. So I'm taking a group, an expedition to the Indian Himalayas this summer, and we're
Mm,
going to be at like 3,500 meters, so about 12,000 feet. And so I'm having everyone train to prepare for that. And I have a practice called dynamic coherence training. So you start at 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, and then you increase 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, six, seven, eight, all the way to 15 seconds. That's really going to help you improve that time because it's going to help build your CO2 tolerance.
mm,
So for me in Reconnect, we don't do a bolt score, we do a CO2 test, which is you breathe in and then you exhale as slowly as possible. And you exhale all the way out until you can't exhale anymore. That's what you time. And so it's very similar to the bolt score, just a little bit different. But um, I found that that's more reliable. I tried the bolt score a lot with people, and I felt like some days it was totally different. For some people, it never changed. But I feel like with the CO2 tests, it seems to be a bit more reliable. And when you actually train for it, you can improve it. So just doing it every single day, I found helps a lot of people. The other thing that I found really helps is to do it when you're walking. So
mm.
to
Yes.
exhale everything out and to see how many steps you can take. Do you do this ever when you exercise?
Yeah, I
Yeah. Okay.
started incorporating that. It makes walking a little more fun too. Yeah,
Oh, totally.
it's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough for sure.
It is. It is. But yeah, I think those two practices, and then the other thing that when I exercise, I'm always breathing through my nose. If I get to a point where where I feel like it's too difficult, I'll take like one or two recovery breaths from my mouth, and then go straight back to breathing through my nose. Do you run at all?
No, but I do
Okay.
like a
Yeah.
spin
I
class.
mean, sorry. Say that again.
So spinning.
Perfect. Okay. And do you also try to go through your nose the whole time when you're doing that? Yeah.
I try, not always. Yeah, I try, and I just started getting back into it, so I need to build that up, but yes.
Yeah, so I mean that's the other thing I always recommend to people is like go for as long as you can with the nose. Take a couple recovery breaths with your mouth, go back to your nose for as long as you can. Recovery breaths back to the nose. That really helps build your tolerance to carbon dioxide, and I think that will really help you improve that bold score.
And so there there it's not an anatomical, maybe thing with my lungs, because I know I'm a yogi too, and I know some of the moves or poses or asanas, there's no way I can get into it, just I'm not anatomically built that way, right? And so I was just wondering, maybe the size of my lungs are, I don't know, maybe they're impeding me to actually get higher bolt. I'm not sure, but
I think it's about we all have the same lung capacity. We just don't have access to all of it. But you have to build that access. So it's like
Mm,
freedivers have become really good at building that access to it. So it's not that they have a bigger lung capacity. They've just trained themselves to
mm,
deal with the buildup of carbon dioxide mostly, right? They've gotten really good at that. I have some exercises too that I do with individuals they're called CO2 and O2 tables. So you're practicing breath holds on the inhale. And so sometimes what you'll do is you'll pick a comfortable breath hold time. Let's say it's a minute. Okay. You'll do the breath hold, you'll recover for 30 seconds. You'll do the breath hold again, recover for 30 seconds, do it again. But then what you'll do is you'll do a breath hold for a minute, recover for a minute. A breath hold for a minute 15, recover for a minute 30, recover for a minute. So you're just practicing like increasing the amount of breath hold time so that you become more, your body becomes basically better at just dealing with the buildup of carbon dioxide. So I don't think it's all about your lungs. I think it's about your relationship with how you respond to carbon dioxide buildup.
Great. Okay. So yeah, I'll try those. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing those. Something different, something to try. I'll keep you posted. So, Kevin, what is your legacy? I mean, you've done so much and you're working on so much. What do you want to be known for?
Well, we're just doing our first expedition, and prior to this work, I used to lead experiential education trips around the world. And now that I'm doing this work, I'm trying to create similar experiences with these practices in interesting parts of the world. So I really want to be known for experiences. I want to be known for creating experiences that change people's lives. If my instructor training becomes one of those experiences, great. If our expedition becomes one of those experiences, great. But I think what's amazing about being a human is just the experiences that we share with each other. So I think if I wanted to be remembered, it would be for those.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So, if someone wants to work with you, is interested in following your work, maybe getting your book or joining your instructor training or one of those experiences that you're talking about, where is the best place? And I believe you also have a promo code.
Yeah. So the best place is reconnectbreath.com. That's our website. It has a link to our YouTube where we have guided exercises. We have guided exercises on our Spotify. On Instagram, we're reconnect without the O. And then for anyone who's interested in joining our instructor training, we have self-paced trainings, which you can just start at any time, do at your own pace, or we have group trainings that launch at different times throughout the year. And for anyone who wants to join either one of those, you can use the code Self Care Goddess for 10% off. And hopefully, you are interested in maybe joining one of our expeditions. We're going to be in India every summer up in the Himalayas, but hopefully, in the next year, we're also going to be going to Mongolia and
Wow, so fun. Interesting. Very interesting. And thank you for the gracious 10%. And in terms of your instructor course, is it just people is it mostly instructors that go ahead to either add it to their current modality or go ahead and teach this stuff? Or is it more to deepen their own breath work? I'm just curious.
yeah, it's been about 50-50. So about
Oh, nice.
50% of the people that join
Nice.
just want it for their own health, which I
Right.
love because that's why I joined my first breathwork instructor training. So I
Hmm.
love that that's kind of the breakdown. And then the other 50% are coaches, therapists, yoga teachers. We've had doctors join, we've had psychologists join. So we're noticing that more and more people in the mental health space want to
Yeah.
use, a specific type of breath work. And they found that our system works really well for them. So yeah, it's been a nice, diverse group of people that we get in the trainings.
Amazing. Wow, amazing. Well, thank you, Kevin. This has been super fun, very, very informative. I urge everyone to go and get your book. As I mentioned, there are lots of different breathing techniques, lots of research. If you're a bit of a nerd or a geek like me, lots of research to look into. That's backed up. Everything that you say is backed up by science and research, and of course, your story is lovely. So I just want to say thank you for doing the work that you're doing and to continue these beautiful experiences that you're providing for us. Thank you so much. And I'm so grateful our paths have crossed.
Me too. It was an honor being here. Thank you so much for having me, Rita. I really appreciate it.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self Care Goddess podcast. If today's episode inspired you, share it with another woman who's ready to reclaim her vitality and lead from within. To continue your journey, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with me on ritasavoia.com. Until next time, remember, self care isn't selfish, it's your superpower. Take a deep breath in, exhale, and keep rising. Ciao for now.